Welcome to the August 18th, 2020 episode of Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And we have another wonderful show here. The week has turned. It is Tuesday. And we got some pretty interesting news. Probably at the top of the heap here is Halo Infinite was delayed. So I guess a lot of people suspected that this would be an Xbox Series X launch title because, you know, it's kind of what people expect because Halo is like the Xbox franchise, right? And always has been. But it was delayed, and to be honest, it's such a big game. They were talking about like releasing it in parts, and I could tell you that really never works out well.
Yeah, let's take our massive launch title and release a fraction of it.
Yeah, and it's a bad look.
Let's finally release Final Fantasy VII Remake, except it's just fucking Midgar.
You know, and actually launching a system without a killer title isn't always a bad thing. I mean, the PS2 the PS2 was launched without anything for a while. Like there was not a killer app for that system.
Yeah, like the GameCube had Luigi's Mansion, which was, you know, okay, but it wasn't Mario Sunshine, you know.
Probably until Melee came around, that system didn't find its legs. I mean, Metroid Prime was the big turning point for me.
It was, but people had to buy it because remember before it came out, everyone's like first person Metroid. I don't know. Like, and once it actually released, people flipped out. But it sounded pretty sketchy going in.
It came out the same, like right around the same time as the original Halo, and both really sold their systems. And Wind Waker had been out for a little bit as well, so that was another big title. So the GameCube took a little while to get its legs, but you know, take as long as you need and like make the game good. That's the way I always feel about these kinds of things because a launch of a game is extremely important. Like because that's when all the buzz starts going for it. I mean, if it's a big game, that's the way it is. If it's an indie title, it's a little bit different. Indie titles, especially if they release in like you know in like a beta form. What's the Steam version of that called?
Early access.
Early access, yeah. If it releases in early access, people know what they're getting into, and they know that they're helping with a developing game. And usually those games tend to be like pretty massive for indie games as well. Like they usually tend to be like really full featured. But like with a big game like this, like you know Fallout 76, you know had an awful launch. It basically destroyed it. I mean, like Final Fantasy 14 needed a complete relaunch in order to get people to get interested.
Yeah,
in
14 actually recovered. Like Fallout 76 is more playable now, but like there's still the stigma. But Final Fantasy 14, it took insane amounts of effort, but it's like well liked at this point.
14 might as well be a completely new game when it was
Oh, it is. I remember Mr. Ryu told me that when it launched, its combat was like slower than FF11's, and he showed me FF11's. That shit was excruciating. Like on the PS2, like killing like a bug enemy was like 2 minutes. It's like, oh fuck this.
Yeah, it was similar to the way that like 11 launched, and you know people weren't going to put up with that shit anymore.
A PS2 title, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and like when that came out, it was more like, you know, its competitors were things like, you know, RuneScape and, you know, like and EverQuest. Those were like the big things back then.
I forgot about EverQuest.
Now, like WoW is a very mature game, and like people love it. So in order to put to have a competitor, it needs to be really good. So like, thankfully they put the money and time into fixing it up, because that game turned out really, really well. And in fact, some people say it has some of the best story of like an MMO like ever.
FF14, from snippets I've gotten, has really gone places.
Yeah, I mean, if I was gonna play an MMO, that would be it, for sure. And but Halo is close to my heart. I love Halo, the Halo franchise. I mean, I dropped off, right around Halo 3, but it's still nostalgic for me to play it. So I would go to it if it had a really good game with a new hook, which this big open world is a new hook. So I think it would be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to whatever they come up with, and I hope it's good. Now, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about SGDQ, because this is a pretty big topic for you, and I know you're really interested in it.
I mean, like, I'm not going to have an expansive list of things to say, but, like, sure. SGDQ, Summer Games Done Quick, has started today, the day we're recording, Sunday, and it's being done all online, so people are streaming from, like, their houses and stuff like that. They still have the HUD that indicates the tracker for all the money being donated, and they still have people reading off donations, but there isn't a crowd in a hotel room or a convention center or something like that. But what's interesting is that the obvious negative is that you don't have this big gathering for everybody to go to. You don't have this, like, physical location that is the event,
Sure.
But the very good news is that this opens up the opportunity for a lot of international people who would not normally get to go to the event because you had to be there to stream. But now they're just streaming from home, which is pretty awesome. So you might get to see people who you would never have been able to see otherwise.
That's really cool.
The downside, though, is because it's virtual only, I've already seen cases where the feed was dropped for a second, or like commentators suddenly disappeared and had to come back. It's like, and it wasn't me, it was the stream. It was like, but like they're working with what they have, and they are doing a good job. Like the tech people are very quick to recover anything that's messed up. So this has largely been cool so far. I mean, like, again, at the time we're recording this podcast, we've only just begun. So there's still the entire week left to go. They opened up with, it wasn't the first game, but they did do Streets of Rage 4 very early on, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I missed the actual stream. I'll have to catch the VOD, but I did see the streamer, Mike Oyama, pulling off just, like, kill combos or near kill combos with each character. You could do some sick stuff in that game with raw damage output if you know what you're doing. One thing I'm hyped about, and only I am hyped about, is that I think I'll have to double check this, I could be wrong, but I want to say sometime on Wednesday they're doing Quest 64. I don't know if they've ever done that on GDQ.
And that's a favorite of yours, so yeah.
Well, it's not a favorite of mine, but yeah, I like it enough. Apparently the estimated time is like a little over 2 hours. I could kind of buy that. If you go all in on Earth, you're just bullshit in that game, so we'll see what happens. Because Earth has an ability called Magic Barrier, and I think there are 1 or 2 enemies in the entire game that have a physical attack. Like, whoever programmed that, I don't think considered the implication of it. It's just straight invincibility for 3 turns for everything, wow. Including the final boss. Magic Barrier is pure bullshit.
Well, that game is easily broken from what I know. Like, even for an amateur,
the game can be tough, but it was ahead of its time. Like, it does the Souls thing, where when you die, you respawn in an inn, having kept all the experience and stuff you've unlocked. Like, you don't lose a save file unless you turn the game off. Like, you have to manually save, but if you die, you just wake up at the inn and can just run right back. And there's no currency in the game, so you can heal for nothing. There are consumable items in the game, which do run out. Like, if you have 2 of a particular item, then you can use them up, but somebody will always give you 1 free one, so you can never have 2 again, but you could always have 1. There's a little bit of an out. So the game is very forgiving in that regard. It's a pretty mediocre game, all things considered, but in some ways it was ahead of its time. Yeah,
and it was also unusual for the platform, especially. So.
Yeah, how many RPGs does the N64 even have? Like, off the top of my head, I can think of 2. The other being Ogre Battle.
And Paper Mario, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, there's 3. But, there's not many.
That's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Hybrid Heaven.
Was that an RPG?
Yeah. It's
All right, all right.
it has turn-based battles featuring like MMA techniques, and that's kind of
Fair
what made
enough.
it unique. Yeah,
Okay.
like it has like a wrestling like battle system that's
Sure.
really unique, and that's why you would go back to play that.
Okay.
But I mean, there are just games with RPG elements after those. I mean, like
Sure,
there's really
sure.
not much. Yeah, Mega Man 64, it's is a stretch. That's an adventure
Yeah.
game, right?
It
Yeah,
has
yeah.
it has aspects of RPGs. It's kind of like Mega Man X Command Mission. There are like
Or
consumable
Zelda has
items.
aspects of RPGs technically. I mean, like, yeah,
Kind
it's
of. I mean,
stretching
I
it.
know that's one of those debates: is Zelda an
Yeah.
RPG or not? Like, is Super Smash Bros. A fighting game or not?
I mean,
Uh,
Zelda is the typical adventure title.
Absolutely.
So if of course that was what an adventure game is, a blend, by its nature, a blend of RPG and action mechanics. That's what it is. And more on the side of action.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it always has been. I mean, that's what Adventure was, right? It was basically very simplified D&D maps. When you play Adventure
Oh, literally
on
the
the
game called Adventure.
yeah, that's why
Yeah,
the genre is called Adventure. It's because
sure.
it was spearheaded by Adventure, Atari's Adventure.
Yeah.
But I mean, Zelda is the evolution of that. So
With colors.
and a lot fewer ducks. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dragons. That's what they were.
but I'm excited for this phase of SGDQ. Maybe if this goes well and they see some advantages of it, maybe they might even adopt a hybrid system for streaming, or maybe even a separate event.
Yeah, a
Which
separate
would kind
event
of
or
be
a
cool.
hybrid idea would be interesting because the GDQ channel at this point has a lot of virtual events that are not GDQ, but they're other video game speedruns for charity
Sure.
events. And like GDQ is the one where they get together. So like they already kind of do that, but it's not actually called GDQ. So yeah, who knows? Maybe they could get something from what is being mandatorily applied this time.
Nice. Well, any other factors that you wanted to mention about SGDQ before we move on?
Not really. Maybe
I
with
mean,
just
it's
one.
not over yet, so
Yeah, it's only just
it's
begun.
missed.
There's maybe like one thing I want to mention, just as an
Sure.
amusing quirk. One of the streamers was European and was playing Eco on
Oh yeah.
PS2, which is a very uncommon thing for GDQ because it takes place in America. And Eco, they're playing the PAL version with the watermelon ending, which means they're playing like a 50 hertz game.
Yeah.
Not that like if you just tuned into the stream and looked, you wouldn't be like, oh, that's a 50 hertz game. But like
I think it's optimized for it though.
that's
So
the
it's not
thing.
like
Like
slowed down
it's
or anything.
for GDQ. That's very uncommon because the whole game takes place in America. If somebody
Yeah.
wanted to play European Eco, they would either have to not play the European version and
I
do
think most
like
people
the
would just play the PS3 version at
I was
this
gonna say
point,
the
which has
PS3
all that
version,
stuff. Yeah.
or they would have to use a freeloader disc and component cables out of their PS2 or a FrameMeister or something.
There must be a specific thing that they like about that for speedrunning or something. So,
Yeah, maybe.
um,
Yeah, because yeah, we do have the HD version, so I don't know. Maybe it's optimized, or maybe they just have a PS2 and that's what they're working with, or
yeah.
what. But in Europe, they got the European version. Play it. They could just do it, nice and easy.
Yeah, maybe the slight difference in frequency makes the game shorter. Something
I
like
don't know.
that, maybe. Yeah.
Well, if actually one thing I would guess is that you can't patch PS2 games. So if anything was patched in the HD version, that wouldn't have been accounted for this time. So maybe there's
Sure.
that too. But I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
Who knows?
amusing to see like a PAL specific feature, like a 50 hertz game. Like GDQ doesn't do that because it takes place in America. So that's just kind
Sure,
of an
sure.
amusing little thing to see.
Well, our next segment is featuring Dante from Devil May Cry.
Oh my god! And Knuckles
And Knuckles. Not so much Knuckles.
with funky mode.
But this is actually really cool. This was an assumption that we made, and a good one, a good assumption, but it was stricken down. Apparently, the remake of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD is going to actually feature Dante from Devil May Cry via DLC.
Yeah, DLC.
Which is actually furthers it being the definitive version of the game because it will have Raidu and Dante, which none of the versions ever had both.
That's true.
So
now when are they going to do? When are they going to do Beautiful Joe 2 HD with Dante from Devil May Cry?
Yeah, that was only in the PS2 version too. So like he wasn't in the GameCube version, which is like the definitive version was GameCube, but like if you wanted to play as Dante, you have to play the PS2 version. So that's a shame. So this will be good. They're merging that. Hopefully maybe in a Beautiful Joe HD remake they would include Dante.
When are they gonna make Red Hot Rumble for PS5?
or a remake of the DS title that everybody forgot.
I think you've even mentioned that before, and I forget it every time.
Yeah, no. There was the last Beautiful Joe game was a DS game.
Freaking weird.
Yeah. I'm excited for this. I mean, especially for SMT fans. Obviously, I could never really get into the SMT games, even the Persona games. They just the really crunchy mechanics never clicked with me. The weakness based kind of stuff. So I continue to try until it clicks. The game that I played the most of was Persona 3 Portable, and I liked that quite a bit, but I got distracted and now I can't get back into it. So I hope amongst SMT fans, Nocturne is extremely highly regarded. In fact, it might be the best title.
I also heard it's one of the hardest titles.
It's also, one of the hardest, especially if you play it on one of the upper modes, which you're not really supposed to do until you hit like New Game Plus, but some people still do it. But this is the title that really got the cult following going with this series. When it came over to the US, only Persona 1 really had come over. There's like a couple other little titles you can get me on, I'm sure, with Demi Kids and the Virtual Boy game.
I was going to mention the Virtual. What was that called again?
What was that?
Was it Jack Bros?
Jack Brothers, yeah. There's a couple other little titles, but like this is really when people started following it and getting into it, and then Persona 3 came out and really blew it out of the water. But I hope to play Nocturne again and for it to finally click with me. So I'm sure they will also have an accessible mode as well, because I can't think of them doing that, especially for considering that a lot of Persona fans will probably check this out. Especially
you don't want to be too prohibitive.
Yeah, and they also don't have any other SMT games on the Switch yet. So like, if you alienate your audience like right off the bat, it's not gonna be good. So I would imagine that it will have an easy mode somewhere in there. That or at least a more casual mode, because you don't want to blow people out of the water, especially new players. And this will be a hot game to talk about when it first comes out for sure. Also, this was a pretty cool news. Do you remember when we had Donnellon on the show for an episode?
Sure.
So we my partner from episode 0 of Corrective Consciousness, he was really big fan of this game Factorio, and he talked about it. It's basically SimCity but with a factory setting. You continue to build this like more and more efficient factory over time, and it's infinitely expansive, and it's an extremely well-regarded game on Steam. It finally left Steam Early Access after 8 years.
Yeah, I didn't realize this entire time it was in Early Access.
Yeah, and because it's been around for so long, people just kind of assumed that it was a really mature game, but I guess the developers didn't think so. So yeah, it hit 1.0 and came out of early access, and it was like a big deal on the Steam front page. In fact, they made a banner for it, and it wasn't just like a like new title or whatever. They put like a banner specifically for the game, which only happens with like really big titles usually. So this was a really cool thing. It's extremely well regarded. You see overwhelmingly positive from like everybody on this title, and so the people that kind of like these management sims and that kind of thing love it. It's kind of similar. It kind of reminds me to the following, maybe not the gameplay, but the following that Stardew Valley has. Just because that was a game that was long in development as well, but people loved it all the way through. And it just kept getting more and more features. I just get that vibe from it, you know what I mean? Congratulations to the team. It's not my type of game. It's not Lotus's type of game, but I certainly can congratulate like a good feat when I see it, and also recognize that it's a quality title. It's just not for me, you know what I mean? Moving on from that, this is something very disappointing. So there is a job listing that people have spotted for Metroid Prime 4 lead producer. That is not a good sign.
Yeah.
That means the game is in very early stages of development, or is in really bad shape. It's one of the two or both. I bet they haven't even really begun making this game, and it was a game that they teased at the launch of the Switch. That's very disappointing to see. And it's gone through its tribulations. I mean, it is with Retro Studios after not doing well with some other company. I forget who it was, but Retro Studios is not what it used to be. It like the top talent that like made Metroid Prime like the original trilogy moved on to make like an Xbox One game that didn't really do well, and it wasn't with Retro Studios. Do you remember what the name of that game was?
I have no idea what any of this is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was this, I think it was called Metrocore or something like that. And it just did not do well. I think that's what it was called, something like that. I forget, but
well, if that was the title, then the fact that I've never heard of it is not a good sign.
Oh no, it did not do well. I kind of am vaguely curious about it to purchase it, but makers of let me look at this up. Makers of Metroid Prime. Let me see if I can find the name of this game. I forget. But anyway, it really stinks that this game is in such bad shape, because I really enjoyed the Metroid Prime trilogy. In fact, if you would count it all as one game, as one work, it may be my favorite game of all time. I really love it. Yeah, it's called Recore. I'm sorry.
Oh, that. Okay. Well, no, I've heard of that. That was like an interesting sounding title. Like people thought it was okay. I just don't think it did very well.
Yeah, and KG Inafune was part of it as well. So that was like part of a bunch of disappointments from him, including Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that's two in a row of just not doing.
He's had a bunch of
I mean,
disappointments.
Recore. I mean, Recore might have been disappointing from the devs' end. I don't know how many people jumped on it, but I heard the game was all right. It was Mighty Number 9 though that just everybody trashed.
I mean, he's had a string of bad games like Yaiba.
The Ninja Gaiden Yaiba.
Yeah, it was a Ninja Gaiden game that by him.
Was that Team Ninja?
I would assume so, but he was a big player in that game. Yaiba, Ninja Gaiden Z. Yeah, it was Concepts, KG Inafune producing the game, and developer was Spark Unlimited, so not Team Ninja.
Okay.
So there's probably your problem.
Yeah,
and that was also
Ninja
the
Gaiden.
last Ninja Gaiden game.
Yeah.
So that really sucks because that was a beloved series. It really stinks. But anyway, this just really stinks because I was of course, looking forward to a Metroid Prime 4. I mean, why wouldn't I be all over that? However, Retro Studios has also made really good stuff without those people. I mean, Tropical Freeze, Donkey Kong Country Returns 2, Tropical Freeze, is considered by many people to be like the best game in the series.
Yeah, that from what I've seen of that, it looks delightful.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, I love Donkey Kong Country too, but Tropical Freeze looks crazy.
Yeah, I mean that is the game to play. It's like one of the best platformers ever made.
Now, if only they would transition Donkey Kong Country Returns as well, so it doesn't have those stupid waggle the Wiimote for ground pound controls.
Yeah, and also like they put an extra section in the DS version.
The 3DS, yeah.
Yeah, in the 3DS version that they could put that in there.
Bring it over so it doesn't have awful DS compression.
Yeah, that's really a shame. Like the definitive version of the game, like the best version of the game, is severely hampered by something, and it's the 3DS.
Yeah, Nintendo just doesn't know how to make like HD handheld stuff. They just don't know how to do it unless you count the Switch finally.
Yeah, well, no, it took a long time. It took a long time for sure. I mean, the original Donkey Kong Country's Returns, to be fair, was not an HD game. It was
but it wasn't compressed to shit either.
Yeah, it was on a little tiny cartridge. What do you
want? That's the thing. Like, look at any DS game, and it looks okay on the system. But if you ever even if you emulate it, if you increase the window size a little bit, it looks terrible.
Oh, it looks like garbage. In fact, that's pretty much the reason why I really didn't play Donkey Kong Country Returns. There's not a really good version of it, unfortunately. Yeah. But the second game is apparently the shit.
Yes.
I don't have much faith in this game, unfortunately, and I wish I did, because Metroid Prime is a series that is near and dear to my heart. I don't say it lightly that it's probably my favorite game. I really love that. The whole trilogy. Some people bag on 2. I do not. I love 2.
If you're going to play 2, play the Wii version, because Speed Boost Guardian is fucking broken on GameCube.
I didn't have a problem with him.
Then you're pretty good, because apparently the dev had a problem.
Well, here's the thing. I tend to have problems with bosses that nobody has problems with, but it tends to be opposite too. Yeah. Like, for instance, in Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, the last DS one, right? It has this early boss that is apparently really hard, and the game itself is one of the more challenging games in the Castlevania series, especially if it's a Metroidvania, and I had absolutely no problem with the crab boss, and apparently everybody was bitching about it at the time, and I had no idea. It's just one of those things. Maybe my play style. I'm an axe. With axes, you block all of his attacks, so I don't know why.
Oh well.
He attacks with these bubbles that are a pain in the ass. So I guess maybe if you're not an axe wielder, whatever. But anyway, moving on from that, this is also some really interesting news. Take it with a grain of salt. It could be a mistake or something that a placeholder or something like that. But this is really interesting news. So UK Amazon apparently has a listing for Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for Switch, which there hasn't even been talk of an HD remastering of this game.
Yeah, that would be interesting, especially if it didn't have, controls that infuriated me. That's like the main reason I still haven't played Skyward Sword. Like, I don't want to fucking play that game. Like, the game looks great, but I don't want to actually play it. Oh, and it'd be funny, by the way, if they do release this for the Switch. It'd be great if, how there's like a whole swag thing of multicolored Joy-Cons. That'd be cool if they had the gold Joy-Con.
Well, I love the Zelda series, and I've beaten most of the console games. I think out of all the console games, like the mainline console games, I should say, the only one I haven't beaten is Zelda 2. And
Yeah, I did Super Nintendo through GameCube on the
yeah,
home consoles, not the Game Boy stuff.
but the only ones I really I haven't beaten either of the 2DS ones, which aren't anybody's favorite. So
Yeah, I
I'm
have them on Wii U at
unlikely to.
least.
Yeah, I have them. I mean, I just you know the first one especially on the DS is not well regarded. But
That was a what, Phantom Hourglass?
Phantom Hourglass, yeah. The one with the train is considered a lot
Spirit
better.
Tracks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spirit Tracks. Is considered to be much better. But anyway, Skyward Sword is really cool in some ways. In a lot of ways, it is a turning. It is the start of the turning point of the Zelda franchise because this game was heavily criticized when it came out, and for good reason. It was not a bad game, but it was limiting compared to its peers. So it was not. It was a very linear Zelda game, unfortunately.
But
And
at the same time, though, as a positive, its characters felt more like characters than in any previous Zelda game,
that
like
is
by a
correct.
lot.
It probably had the best Zelda story up until that point.
Yeah, because like in other Zelda games, you'd be like, oh, that quirky character, that's the cuckoo lady or whatever, who she owns all the cuckoos. But like, people had like characters and arcs in Skyward Sword.
Yeah, and not only that, but it was also like an origin tale
Yeah,
of the Master Sword and all that stuff. So it also like had some really neat areas in it. I mean, there was it also solidified that future-ish ancient tech
yeah,
is and always has been a part of Hyrule. Like Hyrule has always had this ancient technology lying around that like was from an age way long past, and even
yeah.
in the earliest game in the franchise, it is there. And
Yeah,
it's
those
very
statues.
old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially where like it looks more apparent in SNES Zelda. Like in the
Yeah.
old games, the statues shot little electric balls at you, and in SNES Zelda, they're just rotating statues that shoot lasers, and you're like, what? Like, how is this a
Yeah,
thing?
and they never really talked about it back then.
Yeah,
But as time has gone on and things have developed in this franchise, there are more and more automatons and things like that. And in Skyward Sword, there's straight up a robot boss. Like he's a robot.
like
Like
and like
it's
all of
not
the
even a.
guardians in like Breath of the Wild as well.
Yeah, and it's just it was a neat game. Unfortunately, just like you said, I'm not usually a person that I'm usually pretty open-minded. Sometimes I don't prefer motion controls, but I usually am fine with them. But this was a game that was tied to the Wii Motion Plus, which was
Yeah.
a very particular accessory. Not everybody had it, so like it limited its audience, of course. And for a mainline Zelda game to be locked behind an obscure peripheral that didn't do all that well. Let's face it,
Yeah.
there are only a couple titles on the Wii that like absolutely need it, and you know. Not everybody had them. It fractured its base for sure when Nintendo came out with it. It helped that it was some copies were bundled
Yeah,
with
if you like
a
pre-ordered it or something.
with a Wii Motion Plus. This is a Wii remote that had an extra axis of sensor.
Yeah, like later
Um,
models would just come with the
have it.
ability. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like if you had an original Wiimote, you would stick a thing into
And
the
most
bottom of it.
and let's face it, most people are going to have just the regular Wiimotes. I
Yeah.
mean, come
And
on.
what was annoying though was that the whole thing with the Wiimote was especially early because you know how when a new system releases, there's a gimmick that they really
Sure.
push, like the six axis with the PS3.
Or the back touch with the Vita.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But with the Wiimote, it was the motion controls. But the Wii Motion Plus, which didn't come out until around Skyward Sword,
Way later, yeah.
yeah, but like when it finally came out, it's like this is what makes your Wiimote motion controls actually fucking work. because
Yeah,
they always felt like
it's the way it should have always been.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's one thing if you're playing a light gun shooter, you point and click at the screen, that's like the most basic function of the Wiimote, and it worked great. But if you have to do precise motion control stuff, but like, so the action, the Wii Action Plus, whatever it was called, Wii Motion Plus, was what it should have been from the very beginning. Like, I don't mind motion controls if it's like a gimmick, like with Zack and Wiki, where it's like, turn the crank with your hand. But when it's swinging the sword in a fucking Zelda game where that's 70% of what you do, like, no thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would be okay with it in the instances of maybe like aiming at something, like
Yeah, like with the bow and arrow or whatever.
Yeah, bow and arrow is fine.
Yeah, like Twilight Princess.
Yeah, I actually in Twilight Princess, I never had a problem with the motion control version of that. The Wii version of that. I never had
actually,
a problem.
And I never tried it. I never had.
But you know what? First of all, it should be an option. That's number one.
Yeah.
But number two, in Skyward Sword, I swear it just didn't work.
And that's the big game where it definitely works. This is the one. You fight with this. You have to aim at this location to break the enemy's guard. Like, this is where it has to work.
You need precise movement and precise, you need precise aiming to do a lot of the puzzles in the game, and I just got frustrated, and I usually don't complain about this kind of stuff, and I got fucked up by it. I beat the whole game, so you can't say, like, you didn't give it a chance or whatever. No, and I wanted to love it. I love Zelda. Zelda's, like, one of my favorite franchises. I love Zelda. And I wanted to be the apologist, but it just didn't fucking work. And I am happy to see, I'm interested to see what they're going to do, because the game hinges on that, the abilities of that particular
again, swinging your
accessory.
sword is a Wiimote waggle, and combat is precise. You have to aim at the upper, the mid, the lower. Like, everything you do in a Zelda game is swinging your sword. Like, I don't want to get exhausted by playing a Zelda game for, like, 45 minutes.
Yeah,
it's like the Castlevania arcade game. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, like the parrying in this game, like that robot that I mentioned, you have to fight him, you have to parry him and sword fight him. So
yeah, see, what was cool, going back to what you were talking about earlier with the Metroid Prime stuff, Metroid Prime 3, the motion controls.
Great.
The motion controls were like barely in that game. Like,
Perfect,
they were like the grappling hook. Like, everything you do in that game, you play like a normal fucking game, and then when an enemy puts
it to aim constantly. I mean,
the aiming is like a basic point and click function that's on the Wii menu, so there is that. But like, what I mean is the basic controls are like pressing buttons. But when an enemy puts up a shield, you flick the Wiimote, which sends out your grappling hook. You flick the Wiimote back, you rip the shield off. Very basic action, does not require this weird precision movement. You could just jiggle it and it's good, and you feel like a badass for doing it. You use it the one time. It's like in No More Heroes. Everything
No More Heroes had perfect.
Yeah, everything you do is the A button.
Perfect.
And then when it's time to finish a guy off, could you swing your Wiimote to like the left real quick?
Wherever.
What? Oh, okay, done.
If you just flail, it'll work.
Yeah, it didn't really care anyway. So you're just like, I'm swinging my sword once. And it's fucking done. It's not everything you do. You know what was everything you do? Soul Calibur Legends. Remember that
awful.
game? No, you don't, because it was fucking annoying to play. And Skyward Sword was that, but way longer.
Yeah, so I'd be really interested to see a totally reworked version, reworked around the fact that you won't need to use that. I hope they don't do, what they did to The World Ends With You and just kind of throw a half-assed port with like half-assed.
People have wanted a port on that forever, and like, it does work.
Yeah, but nah.
Not the way I would ever play it. So
exactly.
Bye.
Yeah. Just play the DS version is what people still say. But I want to see this game in a fun version to play, and maybe they might even add content to it on top of totally reworking it, which would make it effectively a game that nobody had ever really had a chance to play. And it did, requiring this accessory was something that like shut a lot of people out of it, and the bad reviews scared a lot of people away from it. So like there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that missed this title, and there is a lot of redeeming qualities of it. I mean, the world that they created was very immersive and fun. And really, really charming.
Yeah,
And
well, that was the thing. I think the
yeah,
devs, I forgot if it was Miyamoto himself, but at least the devs said that this is like the most Zelda-like Zelda game. Like, this is
yeah,
the one, and it's
it's a
like
shame.
the most polarizing.
Yeah, it's a shame. And then from then on, because of the criticism, Nintendo completely changed how they make Zelda games. The next Zelda game was Link Between Worlds, which was very open-ended.
Well, not only
Compared to
that, but it also played where the controls fucking worked because you like it's a 3DS. Like you can't motion. You press the fucking A button. You know, like there you go. It works. I press a button and something happens.
and Link Between Worlds ended up being one of the best Zeldas of all time. It's really fucking good.
And it also what also
then they
helped
made
that it was a
Skyward.
sequel to Link to the Past, which was, I mean, Ocarina of Time is the most popular Zelda game. Let's face it. But Link to the Past is a very popular Zelda game.
I would say Breath of the Wild at this point. Breath
Well,
of the
at
Wild
this
is
point, but Link
fucking
Between
great.
Worlds just killed. Breath of
Yeah.
the Wild came out after, didn't it?
Breath of the Wild is the last Zelda game to come
Yeah,
out.
so Link Between Worlds was like the sequel to like one of the most popular Zelda games at the time.
Exactly.
So like yes, back to the classic 2D game that I grew up with, that kind of nostalgia bait, but it worked.
Yeah, it was great. And up until that point, some people would say it was a contender for one of the best games in the series. And
Yeah, I
now
still need to
Breath of
play
the
that.
Wild is out, though. It just steamrolls everything. It's so good.
I hope it does because I didn't play Skyward Sword because I don't like the idea of the motion controls, but I haven't played Breath of the Wild because open world Zelda kind of bugs me, and weapon destruction really bugs me, and Master Sword weapon destruction is fucking inane. So like I haven't started the game yet.
It's not as bad as you think.
That's what everybody says, but it's just like, well, could I just have a fucking weapon like that stays, including the master? Like, because I always assumed it would be, oh, just wait till you get the Master Sword. But even then, nope. All right.
Well, it actually broadens your horizons in it. You could play it more inventively with
Well,
your
yeah, I mean
environment
that
and
is
what
the
you have.
idea. Like,
Yeah.
you know, once you get the Master Sword, you'll just stick with it forever and not experience the creativity. But like, I don't care. I don't want fucking destructible everything. It just pisses me off.
You get used to it very easly.
Yeah.
I don't like that either. One of the reasons why I don't like Dark Cloud 1 is because of that, right? Dark Cloud
Yeah,
1
Dark
has
Cloud 1. Yeah, Dark Cloud 1. That like ends the game if your weapon breaks.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you've been spending hours in. Like I mean, you can carry repair powders, and it's just like bing, it's fixed now. But like, God help you if you don't remember to do that.
I mean, Dark Souls has weapon degradation too. I mean,
But that takes forever. That shouldn't happen.
yeah, but I'm just saying there are good titles that have that shit.
Yeah, well, they're good despite those features. I still
Yeah,
don't like
that's
it.
true.
Like in Dark Souls 2 and 3, resting at a bonfire repairs your weapons, so you will
that's cool.
forget that it's a mechanic.
Yeah, wow.
Because you will die or you will checkpoint, like,
Exactly.
you will
You'll
forget
die.
that durability even exists.
You'll die. But anyway, or you'll get to the next checkpoint.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
it just, like, I mean, because, like, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know, like,
but
what are you doing? Like, let me stop and go to the blacksmith. Really?
just trust me, it actually enhances this game. It's really good. You'll end up liking it. You're nervous about it, but just if you play it, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just-
I mean, yeah, like, we won't know until I play it, but
Yeah.
my assumption is that I will like it despite this instead
Yeah.
of because of it.
Yeah, that's fair. Moving on from that, I just wanted to quickly mention that just because it was a monumental thing, I mentioned this last week, but Arcade Archives, Super Punch Out, the arcade sequel
that's
to
pretty
Punch
crazy.
Out,
Yeah.
Arcade Punch Out, came out finally on Switch, and I'm just very delighted by it. I actually like it better than the original one. Because you have ducking ability, and they actually teach you that. And what it also made me realize is, like, I never really had much of a chance to play Super Punch Out because it's a little rarer in the arcade. I think it's a conversion kit for the original game because it's that similar. And it also makes the game feel more like the Super Nintendo game, which
Sure.
also makes me think, the Super Nintendo game is a natural evolution of the second arcade game. So it's a lot of fun. Just playing the original version of Bear Hugger and learning how to duck.
Yeah, I love how Bear Hugger is just like
He's a
an
tutorial
angry
boss.
guy who punches you, but like in the Wii version, he's charming.
Yeah, you punch him in the stomach and he just like basically laughs at you. Um,
Yeah, he's got like in the Wii game, he's got like a little squirrel buddy because he's Canadian.
yeah.
My favorite is when he fakes you out because he does that need a hug and then just bashes you on both sides. But if he ever fakes you out, he just goes like fooled you and you're like, oh fuck, and he just like sucker punches you.
I'm just excited about this. I mean, I love it when esoteric but significant arcade titles are, or titles in general that were not accessible to most of the population finally have a major platform. And this
Yeah,
is the
Punch
kind
Out
of
was
game...
obscure enough. I didn't even know that there was an arcade Super Punch Out.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a shame that for so long we haven't had access to them, and
Yeah.
it's great that Nintendo has finally decided to basically preserve almost all of their classic
Yes.
arcade legacy.
Oh, you know what? Do you still say jab and body blow?
Yes, yeah, no, it's all
Nice.
in there. It very much looks like just an upgraded version of the original.
Okay.
It just has different bosses. So I'm excited to continue to play that. The arcade Punch-Out games are much harder than the console ones. Of course, they want your money, so they are a lot harder to look at the tells and
Yeah, and even the console ones are rough. It's just that people have been playing them for like 20, 30 years, so they
you learn
figured them out.
Yeah, you learn them over time, just like the arcade.
Like, look at the final boss of Super Punch Out on console. Like, he's ridiculous.
Oh, Rick Bruiser's a fucking dick.
Well, and then there's Nick Bruiser,
yeah,
who's
Nick-
even scarier.
Nick Bruiser's just an asshole. He's not even fun.
No, and his quotes are all ... He just gives you a
he doesn't
stare
even
of
want
death.
to talk to you. Yeah, he's like Mr. Dream. Mr. Dream doesn't want to talk to you.
Oh, really?
He doesn't say. Neither does Mike Tyson. They don't say anything to you.
Well, Mike Tyson says stuff to you.
No, he doesn't.
Sure,
He doesn't have any quotes.
He absolutely does. I watched the Game Grumps play him. He's got quotes.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
And when you beat him, he gives you a whole, oh, congratulations, you're quite good. and
Maybe it's
da-da-da.
Mr. Dream that doesn't say anything, but
Yeah, that's a strange decision then. Like, 'cause it's considering it's the same game.
yeah, I think he's completely silent, especially before the match.
How odd.
I think before the match he doesn't say anything. Maybe between matches he says something, but
Oh, well, yeah, that might be what I'm thinking. Mike Tyson absolutely talks to you between matches.
but he's the only character that doesn't taunt you like before the match or something.
Oh, yeah, he just comes out and plays a straight... Yeah, Mike Tyson does that. He, like, poses and then walks out, yeah.
But anyway, moving on. This is one of the indie shmups. I think it was one of the post-mortem Dreamcast shmups. XYX is now out on Steam. I just wanted to quickly mention it because those post-mortem Dreamcast games are always a delight. I always love the people that put in the effort to put something on a dead system. And now this is much more accessible, especially to the people who, of course, have optical drive emulators in their in their Dreamcast at this point, which is a lot of Dreamcast fans. Let's face it. One of the things about optical drive emulators and like ROM sets and dumps and things like that is they usually leave indie titles off the table, homebrew titles off the table that are paid for games.
Yeah, like the ones that you could still buy at like Video Games New York.
yeah, and that's a great a great policy because you
like
want
the
to
whole
support
reason
people.
to do the giant data file of games is that you're not supporting the devs anymore. No one's making money off of you buying a used Dreamcast game.
But at the same time, as a result, it's like impossible to play even your own ripped copy sometimes of games like this. And if you have an optical drive emulator in your Dreamcast, in order to play one of these post-mortem games, you have to drop your
You have to take it
drive
out and
back
put your
in.
optical drive back in, or get a
Nobody's gonna
second
do that.
Dreamcast.
Yeah, nobody's gonna do that. I had that problem with Stormwind. I mean, I had an optical drive emulator, and I had a game I couldn't play. So now it's out on the Switch, and I'm happy. So yeah, this is really good, and apparently this is one of the best post-mortem shmups. it's cool that it's out. Also, I wanted to throw this out there. There is an indie Metroidvania series called Momodora that was started on itch.io. Like
Yeah, I
the
look
first two
forward
titles.
to playing. Like I have one of them that was released on PS4.
Yeah, so the series got better and better over time, and it really I think Momodora 3 and 4, 4 especially sold well, which is probably the one you have.
What is it called? Do you know?
It has just a subtitle. It's not it's not 4. You know what I mean? It's
Well, yeah, it's called Momodora something.
yeah. Let me look it up.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a well-regarded indie franchise that it's put up by basically one person.
Yeah.
And
the art is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really a labor of love, and the developer recently came out and said how thankful they have been to it was Momodora 3. And Reverie Under the Moonlight is probably the one
that is the one that I
That's
have.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 3 started the higher production values. Like 1 and 2 were obviously very indie, and then 3 ramped it up, and 4 is just way off the charts. It's really, really good looking pixel art. Really good looking stuff. But the dev came out and said like how happy they are that this can be their job essentially, and like people love it. So they kind of teased that a 5th game is on its way. So that's
Cool.
That's really
I didn't even realize
cool.
that there were that many. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna buy Momodora. Like I thought that was just what it was. I didn't realize it was part of this much larger series.
Yeah, the first 2 are on itch.io for free, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah. It may even be part of the Black Lives Matter bundle.
Oh, well, if that's the case, then I guess I have it.
Yeah, you probably have it.
All right.
Or you have access to it. You know, it's free.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, the 3rd game is, I think, very cheap too. Yeah, it's $2 on Steam. I mean, you have no.
That's
no
Reverie
excuse.
Under the Moonlight.
No, this is the 3rd game. The Reverie Under the Moonlight is the 4th game.
That's the 4th game. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I actually got a limited run copy of that one.
yeah, this game is the 4th one is much like head over.
Oh yeah, they have like
bigger.
even on the back of the case they have like the big pictures. I think that like Medusa looking boss, this giant image. Like whoa, look at the size of that sprite, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, even the 4th one, with as great as it is, it's only like $10.
Yeah.
If you want to buy it now on Steam,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
excellent, and I think it's on a bunch of other it's on a bunch of other services as well. If you want
Yeah,
to
I don't doubt
do
it.
it on GOG, it's probably very easily accessible, I think, there. But anyway, it's probably even on itch.io, like the 4th one is probably on there. But anyway, it's just cool to see them have success and be thankful.
Yeah.
It's just neat. Moving on from that, the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 HD remake demo is out, and people are loving it.
Which is very good because
awesome.
Tony Hawk has had a spotty history lately, so it's good that and including the HD release of 1 and 2, like the original one.
Yeah, the original HD version was not well liked.
Yeah, I think it's off of Steam now. Like either you got it then or too bad, or like you gotta find out like a physical case or something. Mm-hmm. But so it's good to hear that people are liking this. And by the way, this is a tangent, but before coming on to record the podcast tonight, in GDQ, they were actually playing Tony Hawk 2X, which is the Xbox release, which has some Tony Hawk 1 levels.
Yeah,
they were playing in SD, but I think it was an HD option.
In fact, a lot of people say up until this point, the Xbox version of Tony Hawk 2X was like the best Tony Hawk game.
It looked solid, yeah.
Yeah, that version of it just had the great graphics, and it also had combination of 1 and 2's levels. So
yes, and you know what's funny though is apparently they did not update the required scores for score attack for getting like the goals for the Tony Hawk 1 levels.
Oh boy, so it's a lot harder.
No, it's extremely easy.
Oh, because
a lot of the scores are like 100, 150,000 points, and then for the Tony Hawk 1 levels, it's like 50,000, so you do like a couple tricks. I got it. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and I think the second game, I think, added manuals, which is a huge part of what you do in the rest of the series in order to link combos. So
and also airwalks, which is what they were using to just like
ruin
these goals. Just like do an airwalk and then spin a few times, and whoops, like 140,000 points.
Yeah, it probably ruined the balance of those original goals.
Yeah, you would destroy the Tony Hawk 1 levels. It's kind of funny. Also, you know what makes this better than the HD PC version?
What's that?
You collect the secret tapes. They did not update it to secret DVDs.
Nice.
That's the one thing that matters the most.
Also, one thing that they are changing about the game is that there was a move called the mute air. Did you read about this at all?
I don't think so.
So yeah, there is a real skateboard trick called a mute air.
Okay.
But it kind of has an embarrassing origin. So the skater who invented it was deaf. So basically the people around him named his trick the mute air because he was deaf.
Oh, okay.
And first of all, he's not mute. He's deaf, but he speaks.
Yeah, that's not what that is. Yeah.
But it was kind of poking fun at his disability, and so Tony Hawk actually like researched it and reached out to his name, who's Scott Weddle, or Chris Weddle. I'm sorry. Chris Weddle, and you gotta remember also that like a lot of the tricks and early history of skateboarding happened in the 80s when people weren't as
the
sensitive.
80s was you could talk about 90s not being PC, which it sure as hell wasn't, but the 80s was worse.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, there's just like a lot of other things, there was a heavy bro mentality, alpha male kind of thing going on with skateboarding, and a lot of things have that problem. But so Tony Hawk reached out to him and asked him what he prefer it to be called, and he just named it after himself. He called it the Weddle Air. So it will now be called the Weddle Air probably in all of skateboarding, not just
That's cool.
not just the game. So
Tony Hawk seems like a cool guy. Like
he is.
Even in like recent YouTube videos, like a year or two ago, he would like. There's a pretty funny series. Like I kind of hesitate to call it a series, but it's kind of a series of videos where like he or like a different guy would be like, you know how when you're skateboarding and some random jackass just goes like, do a kickflip or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they made a series where they're that jackass. They'll just drive by in a car and shout, do a kickflip, and if somebody does, they'll just give him like free merch or like an autograph or something. It's like, oh, you actually did it. Look at that. It's pretty great.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's not the Weddle Air. It's just the Weddle. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But apparently, Chris Weddle was very stoked about it.
Nice.
Cool.
I would be too if fucking Tony Hawk came up to me. He's like, dude, I'm gonna put this in my game.
Well, and not only that, but like
to right a wrong that's been there for like 30 years.
Yeah, it's actually righting a wrong
Closer
in
to
the
40 years.
In the sport, which and Tony Hawk has the power to do, thankfully. So he is the most respected skateboarder of all time. So
have you seen his Twitter feed?
Oh, it's great.
Went viral like a year ago.
Hey, you look a lot like Tony Hawk. Yeah, you have no idea.
Yeah, or like when he's on a plane, you see like multiple skateboarders. What is Tony Hawk on this flight or something? LOL. Yeah. Well, my favorite one of those tweets though was when somebody said, "You look kind of like a young Tony Hawk," and it's like, you are now my favorite person.
All right, moving on from that. So I've been talking about the M2 Shot Triggers games for quite a long time. They're they're shmup ports to the PS4 that are really, really good. They're old shmup games that have been ported to the PS4 in the best ways. They did this with Battle Garega. What was SOS? What's that game called? Disco. I forget what that one's called.
Disco Elysium, the shooter.
No, they did it with a game called Sorcerer Striker, but they also did it with a very popular cave game called Ketsui, and they called it Ketsui Deathtiny. they included a new mode on top of it. It's supposed to be like Destiny, but it's spelled
Deathtiny. Yeah, it's like Darksiders 2, the Deathinitive edition.
Yeah. But Ketsui is amongst their most highly regarded games in terms of scoring mechanics and playability, and they've just added modes and all kinds of widgets to tell you how you're doing because the games have such complex scoring systems. So apparently, and it kind of stinks because only 2 of the titles out of the 5, I think, or out of the 4 shot triggers have been brought over to the U.S. The other 2 are over a year old, and both over a year old, and have not made it yet to the West, which calls into question whether they'll ever be at this point because there haven't been any announcements. Esperade was the last one that they put out. Which is a predecessor to Espegaluda, which is one of their bigger titles as well. So, apparently a Western digital release was found on a website called Gamstat. I think it's some kind of like release website or whatever. So that calls into question whether it's like real or not. But a lot of times when stuff is accidentally put up like this, that it turns out to be true. So I hope it's a Western release of this game because it's a fantastic title and more people should be able to play it. It shouldn't just be people like me who will go out and import. And this day and age, I shouldn't have to import games. It kind of torques me that the only games that I really have to import anymore are still like the esoteric or the specific genres that I like.
Yeah.
Because no other, like basically every other major release, there are very few PS4 games that you need to import for. Like almost every. In fact, most of them get localized. Even the hardest of games to localize, like the Trails of Cold Steel games, they get localized. I mean,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, those games have tons and tons of dialogue. They put so much time and effort into localizing those. It isn't what it used to be, where you'd miss out on tons of games, like in the PS2 era. You'd miss out on tons of games.
Yeah.
PS1
Even I've
era.
imported like 5 games: Berserk, Hokuto, JoJo.
But there are
maybe
tons
4.
of games that you wish you could play in English. All that stuff.
Or even the ones where you could get away with it anyway.
Yeah.
But like you still just need to import.
Yeah, I mean, PS1 era and Saturn era was probably the worst. You had tons and tons of games that never got
Saturn especially.
Yeah.
God damn.
But anyway, PS4, I've imported a handful of titles, including the Virtual On trilogy.
Yeah, I've imported a couple, but more just for the novelty of having physical, like JoJo Eyes of Heaven. I didn't need to import that, but I did.
But the vast majority of things you don't need to, and
you don't. Yeah.
It's a shame that I've had to import 3 shmups. Just bring them over. Come on, I'll pay for them. Like just put them out. Also, I wanted to mention this really quickly, but Devolver Digital said something really funny. They said,
yes.
I'm going to read it verbatim here. Devolver has pretty friendly publishing deals, but one thing we mandate is that all of our tweets about your game are canon.
One thing we mandate.
This is non-negotiable. They go on to say, for example, Genital Jousting, Dropsy, and Fall Guys are all in the same universe.
Fall Guys in the same... What?
So Fall Guys is right next to Genital Jousting in that universe.
Yeah, like Dropsy, the guy who accidentally set his circus tent on fire and like killed tons of people. Like Fall Guys is a game show being held elsewhere.
Yeah, Dropsy just wants to hug people. I just thought that was funny. I mean, it's not serious, but
Metal Wolf Chaos, which was not Devolver Digital, but now retroactively is in the same universe.
Therefore,
this
all
FromSoft game
FromSoft
is in the
games.
same universe as like Hotline Miami.
Yep. So moving on from that, Resident Evil 7 surprisingly is now the best-selling Resident Evil game of all time, when 5 previously was. And 6 is right behind 5. So that's actually really interesting, considering that Resident Evil 7 is a return to form to the horror roots of Resident Evil, and
while at the same time being a departure from standard gameplay.
Yeah, no, it's a unique game in the series, so it's surprising that it sold this well, but it's been out less time than the other games too.
Yeah.
So that's just a testament to its quality. And
maybe people really like original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a cool VR game too. For people who have PSVR.
That is one thing. I don't know if I'm gonna play that game in VR. I don't think I want to do that.
Well, that's just a personal thing. But like, if I was gonna sell like somebody on PSVR, I would be like, dude, this horror game is something you got to play if you're into it.
Yeah.
But it is also the second best-selling Capcom game of all time. Do you know what
that's
the first
incredible considering how much shit they've made.
Yeah, it's an old company too.
Like, what's the best, Street Fighter 2?
No, it's surprising. It's Monster Hunter World.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
16.1 million units. Jesus
Holy shit.
Christ. That game's... So,
was like 2/3 of those units in Japan? Because that's kind of like a...
No.
Like, Monster Hunter, the series as a whole, is a pretty prohibitive series. Like, World is the most welcoming of them, but still.
I think it's just... It feels really at home on the PC. And I think China plays it a lot too. Japan plays it a lot, and America plays it a lot. And Europe plays it a lot. Everybody does. I think it being on PC really helps it, especially the Chinese on the Chinese end, because
I'd rather play with a Wiimote to play a Monster Hunter game.
Fuck that. What is it? Try? Try was that?
Yeah, Try, TRI.
Yeah. But yeah, Resident Evil 7 has sold 7.9 million units, so it is only sold as
less than half,
as
and it's still in second place.
So all the way down. So Resident Evil 2, which is a Resident Evil 2 remake.
The remake. Well, that's like a remake of like the best Resident Evil game ever made,
or most well regarded, I would say. Resident Evil 2 Remake is the game after Resident Evil 6, but it's also one of the newest games. It's probably the newest game on this list, so it'll get above 6. I don't know about 5 because it has that multiplayer component, which just made it so fun. But Street Fighter 2 is under that. So just to
because Street Fighter 2, like, they've been selling that game since the 90s.
And then you have Monster Hunter World Iceborne under that, which is the expansion. So that's selling really fucking well for an expansion.
Yeah.
And then Resident Evil 2 Vanilla is under that.
Yeah, that game just killed when it came out.
Yeah, so...
Remember Resident Evil 1? Like, well, now it's a known quantity, and this one is, like, just better in every way.
Yeah. So,
it also helped that it was ported to everything. Like, Resident Evil 1... to be fair, also had a lot of ports, but the freaking N64 and GameCube got Resident Evil 2.
Yeah. Well, Monster Hunter World really struck a chord with the entire world this time around, so it's aptly named. So, but still, Resident Evil 7, that bravo. I mean, that's really great for a big risk that they took.
PT finally did come out, and it was made by Capcom.
Well, I mean, they could have kept going the Resident Evil 5, 6, route, because they have sold so well. I mean, why not?
Well, they did sell, but 6 was critically
maligned.
Pretty brutalized,
Yeah.
especially because they were actively trying to emulate Call of Duty. And I mean, I've said this before. If I want to play a Call of Duty game, then I will, because those are better, because they're actual Call of Duty titles.
Sure.
When I play Resident Evil, I want to play a Resident Evil game.
They're refined, yeah, exactly. Call of Duty games are the best of their type, like, for a reason. They're extremely
it's pretty rare for, like, a knockoff to... I mean, it's happened, but it's pretty rare for a knockoff to be equal or better than its inspiration.
Fortnite.
like you really think Resident Evil is going to out Call of Duty?
Oh, yeah. Well, every battle royale game except for PUBG. but whatever.
Well, that's true. I mean, I don't know if Fortnite is a rip-off of PUBG, but it certainly stomped it.
Fortnite did not start as a battle royale game.
That's true. It was Save the World, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on. I just quickly wanted to mention this since we talked a little bit about it. Bryan Lee O'Malley confirmed that Ubisoft has started to talk to him, possibly about.
Yeah, so Bryan Lee O'Malley, the creator of Scott Pilgrim, is confirmed to make a new Rayman game.
I wouldn't actually mind that, but
well, considering how 2D animated style Rayman has become, I actually could see that working.
The last two Rayman games were fucking fantastic, so
yeah.
I mean I have no problem with that. If you ever played Origins or Legends,
I've watched them play. They look gorgeous.
They're amazing.
So Bryan Lee O'Malley confirmed for new Rabbids game.
Okay, still okay, but I'm really happy that at least some gears are turning. Get Scott Pilgrim was only digitally sold for 4 years, which is really short amount of time. So hopefully they can come to an agreement with Universal.
Speaking of Scott Pilgrim, the digital version, I did see a tweet sometime last week where Anna Monoguchi talked about how good the music was in that game.
Oh, yeah.
There was some anniversary tweet about Scott Pilgrim, and Anna Monoguchi was like, yeah, that was good stuff.
I would actually go as far as to say it's one of my favorite video game soundtracks ever. It is, and I've listened to Anna Monoguchi's albums. It's their best album. It's really fucking good.
And this is a case where you really want the soundtrack to matter, because you know how Mega Man is all about the music. Scott Pilgrim, the whole thing is a band. I hope the music in that game is good.
Yeah, and I mean, the movie had really awesome music arranged by Beck, which is really amazing.
Remember that time Michael Cera played the bass line for Final Fantasy IV's battle theme?
Yeah, I mean, he apparently
he actually did it for real too.
Yeah, the kids in that movie at the time, they were kids. They actually learned how to play the instruments and to sound like a garage band, which is really neat. But I mean, I hope this happens, obviously, because it was a great tie-in game, probably one of the best tie-in games of all time, and it was just one of those perfect storms of great talent. So I hope there's a physical version of it too. That way, when we inevitably lose the game again, it's accessible.
Yeah. Yep.
So moving on from that. I just thought this was really neat. Galloping Ghost gets a Sega R360 arcade machine and has the only working one in North America. Do you know what this is?
Yeah, I never heard of this.
So, this is... first of all, Galloping Ghost is the largest arcade in North America.
In Chicago.
It's in Chicago. I've been there. It's really a really awesome place. They have, some games that don't exist anywhere else. Literally, they have.
Yeah, the Beavis and Butthead beat 'em up.
Yeah,
Primal Rage 2.
Yeah.
What?
They also have the only North American copy of Sega Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh yeah. By the way, that was I saw that speed run. It wasn't at a GDQ, but I saw that speed run online on the GDQ channels. They've emulated it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, no, I mean...
Also, do they have the Metal Gear Solid arcade machine?
No, but I think they have the Half-Life one, which is really rare for North America. Half-Life 2. So this arcade is legit. Not only is it a great arcade, and also their fee for
they have Ninja Baseball Batman, don't they?
Yes, they certainly have that, because I played that there. It is an arcade to go to, because not only do they have a lot of the stuff that you want to see there, they have all kinds of obscurities. They have both Atari composite pinball games, so Baby Pac-Man with the screen up top that you play Pac-Man on and then play pinball down below, and they also have the rarer other game that they made called Grandma Gator or something like that. Which is a much better game than Baby Pac-Man. But they have a weird, very rare Sega, almost sequel to Frogger. That that was really interesting. Like they have, and on top of that, they have like every shmup you'd ever want to play. They have like a shmup section, then they have a fighter section. They have like every single SNK fighter just like right there. Every single one you've ever played, just like in a row. It's really cool. But anyway, so this R360 cabinet is one that I've actually had the pleasure of playing in at a mall arcade way long ago. So this, of course, was before North America didn't have any of these obviously running. But they had a version of G-Lock in there. And G-Lock is a spin-off of Afterburner. But essentially, it's a 360 motorized cabinet. So, like, when you do a barrel roll or a flip in the game, you actually flip.
Fuck that.
It's really awesome. I don't know whether it actually goes all the way around, but it's near that. It kind of, feels really neat. It was a really cool experience, and it's like the way those games were meant to be played. It's kind of like a carnival ride rather than just a video game. I don't think it actually flips. I could be wrong about that. It's really neat. It has it kind of pivots you back and forth along with it, and it feels realistic too. I think there's one other game that it plays in it. Let me see, Sega R360. So there's one other game in it. Let me see here. It's a motion-based arcade cabinet produced by Sega. It is noteworthy for its ability to spin 360 degrees in any direction on two metal axes. Oh, so that it does flip.
That sounds like the opposite of fun.
I mean, some people like loops and things on roller coasters. I guess you don't, but
I cannot stand them.
Oh, I love it. But also a second game called Wing War. So it's not just one game. It's two. So it's really neat. It's a lot of fun to watch people in it too. And it's just one of those things that I don't think anybody ever thought that they would see another one of again, because you have to maintain it, and obviously it's pneumatic and it has a lot of moving parts. So, and these things are old. There aren't a lot of them. I think there's only 150 that they ever made in their production run. So, and it takes up a lot of space. It is 7 feet tall, 8 feet wide, 7 feet in diameter, 8 feet tall. Yeah, so it's crazy. It takes up a lot of real estate, and thankfully they have a large area that they're still filling up but it's still just so neat. So I definitely recommend at least watching a video of this, because it's really neat. It is not for Lotus, but it's just cool. Moving on from that, I just quickly want to mention that unfortunately Sega's Akihabara Arcade Building 2 location, which is one of their iconic locations, is permanently closing at the end of the month.
Yeah, so, and I heard this was after like 17 years too.
It stinks. Especially in a spot like that where, tourists obviously go to Akihabara for this kind of thing, especially like North American tourists that like video games. So, of course, this would be the kind of place that they would like to see in Akihabara. So it really stinks, because Sega's own arcades are iconic, and the arcade business is obviously not what it used to be. It's a very much a shadow of itself, and it sucks to see a location in a prime location like that in surrounded by things that go along with it close, because it just stinks. I just wanted to do a memoriam there. A couple other little things. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, which got a remake on PSP, never got a North American release. We got the remake of Innocent Sin, which is the first part of Persona 2.
Yeah, yeah.
And thankfully we got that, because we got the PS1 version of the second game, the Eternal Punishment, but we never got the first part of it, which is really annoying. So essentially, we had versions that were straddled. We had the PSP remake of the first half of the story, and the old version of the second half. Somebody is working on a fan translation of the second one. So it's really neat that that's happening. Just wanted to throw that out there. Also, this is really weird, but I didn't even know this existed, but the arcade version of Quake 1
yeah, that's bizarre.
was apparently a MAME title that never worked, that I never knew existed, and is finally playable in MAME. They cracked the encryption for the copy protection on it, and that apparently was the thing that was holding up. And it's playable. You could play arcade Quake, which is weird. It even has like it has a one-player mode, a single-player mode, and it also has an arena mode. You could play multiplayer with just like you would with PC version of Quake 1. So I just thought that was interesting. It's just something I never knew existed. Also, SNK announced that they are coming out with a new tabletop product. It seems like they put one out all the time. But their MVSX, which is a tabletop arcade cabinet version of their MVS. It's not just like the mini. It's like a full two-player thing that you could put like on a bar top or tabletop. It's made by the same people that have made all their other emulation stuff, which isn't very good. The same people that have made the SNK Neo Geo Mini and the Neo Geo X. I haven't been a big fan of that. Their quality of emulation, not the console emulations, which have always been really good, but these trinket emulation things. So I don't have much hopes for it, so I just wanted to quickly mention it. Arcade 1-Up, apparently somebody tracked down an ad leak for Sega AM2 Arcade 1-Up, which had never been announced, that apparently has Virtua Fighter Remix, Virtua Fighter 2, Sonic the Fighters, and Fighting Vipers on it. I thought that was really interesting, especially considering that Arcade 1-Up cabinets have been getting better and better over time, especially in terms of accuracy. Like the NBA Jam one and the Star Wars ones in particular are really, really awesome. And this could be really cool, especially considering that not all of these games are easily playable. Like the Virtua Fighter 1 in particular is... I don't think you could play that one very easily, right? So, you can play Virtua Fighter 2.
Yeah, it's like 32X.
Yeah, 32X or Saturn. Yeah, or PS2.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about PS2.
Yeah, PS2. But I don't think like. Yeah, so like Virtua Fighter 1's still a good game.
Even the Yakuza games, they only throw Virtua Fighter 2 at you, and much more recently 5. Like 1 just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and Fighting Vipers doesn't get enough love. I mean, that's a great game too. So
yeah, that's on PSN, but like it just kind of nobody cares.
Yeah.
I want to play as not Jotaro.
You threw this one in the notes. You can make this quick announcement here.
Yeah, I thought you would find this amusing. Yeah. I mean, because you personally have Silent Hill 1 on vinyl, the OST.
Sure.
Silent Hill 2 was available on vinyl, I think, through Fangamer. And the record company Mondo announced, I think just a couple days ago, so like the 14th, that it's going to have Silent Hill 3 and 4's soundtracks on vinyl respectively. And those, by the way, those are good soundtracks. Say what you will about Silent Hill 4, it's a quality soundtrack.
Yeah, and Mondo has put out some of the more iconic Konami vinyls as well. They've put out all the Castlevania ones. So
Okay.
I'm really happy about that. Konami has put out vinyl releases on a lot of different labels. Ship to Shore has put out a bunch of theirs.
Yeah, yeah.
And those have been really good, but and there have even been a couple outliers on other labels, but
Yeah,
Mondo,
Fangamer I think might have been Silent Hill 2 only. I'm not
yeah,
sure if they did more than that.
yeah, but I think Mondo's done the Metal Gear ones as well, and as well
Okay.
Snatcher I think is Mondo as well. I could be wrong about that.
I want to say Ship to Shore, but whatever, it's one of
Yeah,
those two.
yeah. But Mondo puts out some wild cover art for their vinyls.
No, you're right, it was Mondo.
Oh, okay. I really like their Castlevania ones. They're really neat, and their mastering is really good. So,
Actually, you know what? It looks like Mondo, Ship to Shore, and Fangamer might have gotten their hands on Snatcher.
yeah, I know with certain ones they actually collaborate with Ship to Shore, and Mondo just puts out like a special version of it sometimes.
Okay.
What they'll do is they'll like one of
Oh
the
yeah,
stores.
Snatcher. They had like the blood splatter vinyl.
Yeah, some of the stores will have a different design for the vinyl. So if that matters to you, but it doesn't
Yeah,
really.
like a variant.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that might be your thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think Ship to Shore might be the one behind them all. Like I think they might actually have the relationship with Konami, but I could be
Okay.
wrong. Also, this is pretty devastating to physical media, but Disney has pulled out of production of 4K HD Blu-rays, Ultra HD Blu-rays, which is really disappointing. Disney is the biggest media corporation in the entire world. They own everything now, and if they if they aren't putting Marvel movies on 4K, or Star Wars movies on 4K UHD Blu-rays, or their animations.
Well, the thing with this is though, like, I had heard that Disney was pulling out, but there's an article from Forbes, because I thought I saw this on social media somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's an article from Forbes from the 12th that's called "Disney Formally Denies that it's ditching 4K Blu-ray catalog releases." The thing is, it said like, I'm instructed to attribute this to a Disney spokesperson, so there's like no name on this, so it's kind of like eyebrow raising. But the quote says, "There are no plans to discontinue releases in a particular format. We evaluate each release on a case-by-case basis and pursue the best strategy to bring our content into consumer homes across platforms that meet a variety of demands."
Okay.
So, like, that's not necessarily... Yeah, like, that's not necessarily like a kibosh on all 4K Blu-ray, but, like... Yeah, because it said Disney was still committed to releasing 4K Blu-rays of its latest blockbuster releases, and the rumors suggested that Disney was not likely to pass up the chance to release James Cameron's Fox movies on 4K Blu-ray once he
Those
gets
are the most highly
around to
anticipated releases.
Yeah, so like, it's a little weird that it's quote an employee, but like they may not be going hard against physical media yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will fully admit that I don't have like a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player. I don't have one. I've been waiting for the new generation of consoles to get one.
I was gonna say PS4 Pro is like the only
PS4
chance.
Sony really missed an opportunity there. I would have bought a PS4 Pro if it included one. And because like my girlfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, had a 4K TV at the time, and I would have bought one. And I didn't see a reason to buy an Xbox One X because I barely play my Xbox, and I didn't see a reason to get a standalone one because I knew eventually a system would have it. So I've just been putting it off.
That was the thing. Like,
Yeah.
despite the PS3's high prices, because no one's paying fucking $599 US, but when it went down to 500
Yeah.
bucks, it still sold decently well just because Blu-ray players were even more
Sure.
expensive.
And they weren't
You
as
know,
good of a Blu-ray player as the PS3 was.
yeah, like I think I've mentioned this before. My cousin, who like doesn't care about video games, like since like the N64, like he got a PS3 as a Blu-ray player.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a proponent of physical media. But all the same, I am also a user of streaming media. I'm not against. I like physical media, overall more because it has more features. But sometimes I like the convenience of streaming media.
Well, especially for movies, because if you
Yeah,
stream movies, you get the movie, but the discs come with like, well,
all kinds of
sometimes
extra
crap,
stuff.
but varying amounts of extras. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Chapter select. Ooh.
no, but a lot of times you get like featurettes
Yeah, behind the
and
scenes
commentary.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
And that I love that kind of stuff, and especially for movies that are beloved, like Terminator 2 is. Come on, that's a movie that you're gonna want all kinds of special features for because it's an iconic movie and has a lot that went into its production. So, um, I think it's a shame if this is our last physical media for movies. Because it very well could be, because streaming is just so convenient that most
Yeah.
people are like outside of us. So we're people who really love, yeah, and are passionate about the things that they love. So we're gonna like all the nuances of a physical release, but like most people are just gonna be like, oh, it's Terminator 2, I'm gonna turn it on Netflix, or
I
Disney
mean, well,
Plus or
to
whatever,
be
Hulu.
honest, like when it comes to movies, I don't care as much. I'll just watch the movie.
Sure.
But like, my main concern is that games can just, well, games cannot do anything. But like, developers can just, or like people who run Steam or PSN or whatever, can just pull the rug out from under you. Guess what? You can't buy Scott Pilgrim anymore. Like, at all. Can't do it. There's no way to do it. Fuck you.
I mean, we will live in a world, rather, that Netflix has plenty of series that are specific to it, that will
Yep.
be lost forever except for piracy. When they
Yep.
decide not to host it anymore, or there's a rights issue, or they inevitably maybe get bought out by somebody, and then there are complications, or
Or if they rehost and there's a rights issue,
yeah,
like famously with Arrested Development, they no longer play the final countdown during Job's magic acts, which is like
so annoying.
the whole humor
It's
of
the
the
joke.
scene. Yeah,
It's the joke. So yeah, I mean, eh, I'm just a little weary, and especially considering that Disney has so much sway. They could easily cripple something like this with a decision like this. So, half of all the media that was going to come out on this is suddenly not there. That kind of thing. So they are just that powerful. I'm sure that if you look at UHD Blu-ray sales, that like Disney affiliated movies account for the majority of it. I think that's undoubtable.
I mean, who else is even releasing movies in Ultra HD?
Yeah, I mean, like the Marvel movies are the perfect kind of thing to get like that, because they look beautiful. They have such intricate, special effects and all that other stuff. So
That's the thing.
and
Like
they're
your
action
random ass
showcases.
schlock movie isn't gonna get like an 8K release or whatever or 4K.
Oh, I mean, they could. I mean, like
They could, but like, come
yeah,
on.
I mean, film is basically 8K, so any movie that was filmed on film has a potential to be remastered in 8K.
That is true.
But anyway, just a feeling. Just a couple little things. I know we're running late, but I just wanted to mention these things. Macgruber is a great SNL sketch, recurring SNL sketch. It was really, really funny at the time. It was a parody of MacGyver, and he's just a really stupid and terrible MacGyver. And it was also the very last SNL movie to ever be released.
and nobody cared.
Nobody cared at the time, but it has since become a cult hit. It's actually really
Has
funny.
it? Okay, I was actually going to say, like, who thought it would be a good idea to do the announcement you're
The
about to
movie
give?
is a cult hit. People actually really like it in retrospect. It's kind of like Hot Rod. Hot Rod is kind of like that. It came out to no fanfare whatsoever, and then subsequent years, since it's been played on TV and things, it's shown to be a cult hit. Macgruber is a really funny movie. I absolutely recommend watching it. But this is pretty cool. Peacock is getting a series of it, which I think is like mwah. Like I can't wait to watch it. And Peacock is NBC / Comcast's new streaming service that is free, I believe. So it's ad driven but free. So why not watch it? You know, most people that have Comcast can even just say Peacock into their like voice remote and get access to it. So for no extra money, which is really neat. And so I'm just looking forward to that, and of course Will Forte is in it, so I'm super excited. And that's the first time I'm excited about a Peacock show, that's for sure. And just quick little fluffy kind of stuff. We usually talk about deaths at the end of an episode, but I wanted to do some happy birthdays instead, to liven it up a little bit. Happy 33rd North American birthday for Metroid, the original Metroid on NES. And this is a big one. Happy 70th birthday to Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple. You'd never think that he would be the one to outlive Jobs, but he's still plugging, and he's a great guy. He survived COVID too. Like he's a really cool dude. I don't know if you follow him at all, but he's very positive and generally is really just a cool dude. So
nice.
I just wanted to throw that out there. Anything else for the good of the order? I know we're running late here, Lotus.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good.
Okay. That is the show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Hopefully you didn't get too many ads, if any, during this long show. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Thursday for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on anything.
And you can follow me at my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, I just finished The Swapper, for example, or getting conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found on patreon.com/LotusPrince.
All right, wonderful. We will be back with another episode of Corrective Consciousness on Thursday, continuing our coverage of the Castlevania series. I see you like Castlevania.
Until next time, everyone.
Catch you then.